Late November, Jagex released a bunch of Thieving updates, raising the max level to 120, introducing new stalls and pickpocketing NPCs, changing chests, and the last and best thing, heists. Heists are a new thieving training method where you infiltrate a vault, dodge the dangerous defenses, and steal all the goodies you can. This update introduced 2 of them, but I think given their popularity that they will eventually introduce more. And well, if you haven't realized that yet, heists are exactly what we're going to be talking about today. According to the devs, heists were designed with the idea of Big Game Hunter in mind. In Big Game Hunter you dodge dinosaurs while building traps in order to hunt them. The activity had huge success, and so they wanted to do something similar for thieving. As such, I think it's important to go over why Big Game Hunter is so loved and how heists learn from them. And well, the answer is actually very simple. They made skills into cluster actions instead of singular actions. Let me explain. RuneScape is filled with singular training methods. What I mean by this, usually when you are doing a skill, you do a single action that grants XP in that skill. So, for example, and since we're already talking about it, enter. You get XP by hunting a creature. You hunt a creature, you get the enter XP. Simple. This applies to most skills in the game and most training methods. So, a cluster is when you put a lot of singular training methods together. In Big Game Hunter, you can train with cutting by just cutting the trees for logs, you train Hunter by setting the traps, you train Slayer by killing the giant dinosaur. All of these are singular actions, but they are all tied together due to the progress they earn. And progress is the second defining feature of cluster activities. Sure, you could train with cutting by continuously cutting the tree that you find at Big Game Hunter. You could, continuously build and destroy the traps and build them again to train Hunter, but you wouldn't be earning any progress towards the overall cluster. The objective of clusters is to make players do singular actions that lead to a greater outcome. None of the actions you do in Big Game Hunter are, and pardon the pun, big by themselves. In fact, the vast majority of Hunter XP comes from getting the resources of the dinosaur. For you to get to that point, you have to complete all of the progress from all of these singular actions. Now, we combine cluster actions with progressions, and we have a training method that is good. Well, okay, there's actually another piece of the puzzle missing. Variance. Cluster actions can be good, but only one thing makes them worth it. The variance you find. In Big Game Hunter, if you are caught by the dinosaur too many times, it can run away and you lose your progress. This is not quite a punishment like dying in combat, for example, but these types of deterrence makes players more alert and or increase the tension that you find. Take making pies, for example. While all training methods you do there are related to cooking, and all of the steps are related to cooking, you do have different steps that you need to complete. The issue here, there's no variance to those steps. The steps are always the same, so you don't see players tripping over themselves to make pies as an interesting cluster training method. Big Game Hunter, on the other hand, has variance. The variance of the NPCs that can catch you, the dinosaur roaming around the arena where you do the enter method. So players have both a level of tension and feel accomplishment for beating the encounter despite the danger that the dinosaur posed. This variance also creates the incentive to optimize the gameplay of the encounter to what the player wants. Do you want to take it as fast as you can and play on the limit, or just, take your time and try to do as little dodging as possible because you're not good at it? Both are possible scenarios they can go for. It's up to you what you want to do. When you combine all of that, you get a training method that is both satisfactory and rewarding to the players, and more interestingly, you create a training method where players don't even feel like it's a training method. Every encounter in Big Game Hunter is its own encounter, so players tend to focus more on each specific encounter than the number of encounters you need to achieve the level you want, like you would with normal Hunter creatures. Just as a side note, variance can be both a good and a bad thing. Enter, for instance, has variance in the chance of you capturing a creature. The variance isn't exactly the most fun thing in the world due to the, singular action nature of the training method. When it comes to designing content, there isn't a right or wrong way of doing it, there's only ways that work, ways that don't, and ways that are just sort of there and are kind of lukewarm. Ultimately, you always have to ask yourself what the players find engaging and what is healthy for the game. With that knowledge in our hand, now we can try and understand why heists have had the same amount of praise as Big Game Enter. Heists are also cluster action training methods. Your objective is to steal loot, sure, but you also need to deal with dodging dangerous obstacles which add variance to the method, as well as work to reach the end of the vault and complete the heist. Combining the act of stealing different things with the progress of inputting the vault and added variance of dodging the danger makes for a cluster action training method that players find tension in due to the potential loss of reward or even death, cause heists is very easy to die, but also creates a rewarding feeling when you complete the heist with a max amount of loot, for example. To this effect, whenever you are doing a heist, you don't really think about all of the thieving XP you are getting, but rather you are focusing on the heist itself and the potential loot you can get. At that point, the XP is honestly just a bonus. I would even argue, due to the nature of the content, the XP rates could be lower than other methods and it would still be a fairly popular training method. And I did neglect to mention something else that makes Big Game Enter, and in this case heists, pretty good. While it's not necessarily a requirement, cluster action training methods are at their best when involving the environment. Look, you don't need a vault to make this method interesting. The reality is that all of the obstacles and all of the doors and chests could be placed anywhere else, and you could even just, make them into single action training methods. And they will be fine. But what ties it all together is the set dressing. Sure, you could not bother with any of this and just create an area where you can click chests while dodging obstacles for loot, but the immersion of actually making physical progress through the environment is what really sells the method as more than just, a method to train a skill. It's the environment that tells the story and informs your progress, visually speaking. How far along the vault you are is direct visual feedback of your progress, which ends up being way more immersive than other training methods. And when you are far more immersed in a training method, the training method doesn't feel as much as a training method as just something you are doing in the game. Yeah, kinda. Much of the way these methods were designed is close to how minigames were designed. In fact, Allo's Epic in Old School RuneScape, for example, is considered a minigame, not a training method. Technically, it is a training method, but, the designation is minigame. Enclosed spaces with a clear beginning and end, where you have a win and lose condition you need to fulfill to get rewarded, tend to be the designing aspects of minigames. So, is Heists, or are Heists a minigame? Well, no really. To me, they lack two major things that are associated with minigames. Number one is the currency. Most minigames have currencies or stores where you can unlock rewards. That's not the case for heists. Heists simply just have regular loot that you get after every heist. And number two, multiplayer. While I can see other players doing the heists, I cannot mess up their progress or interact with them. In minigames, usually you have to do so in order to earn progress towards the rewards, and sometimes you even need other players to earn those rewards, be it with, facing those players or working in a team to earn those rewards. You need those players. In heists, as much as you can see other players, you don't need them. At the end of the day, though, the classification doesn't really matter too much to me. As long as a method is fun and people enjoy doing it, I don't see much relevance in labeling something a minigame or not. To me, just, sure, label it a minigame if you want. I don't particularly do so, but it's fine either way. People enjoy it, and that's the important thing. At this point you might be thinking, well, if they are so great, why doesn't every skill have one method like that? Why are the two things you mentioned, Big Game Enter and Heists in this case, such high level as well? The reality is that, well, it's not that simple. Yes, a lot of people do love these methods and find them fun. For me, Big Game Enter turned Enter from a meh skill to one of the best in the game. But that's not the case for everyone. Some people just don't enjoy these progress type methods. Some people prefer the simplicity of singular action training methods, both from an input perspective and a reward perspective. You also have to consider that singular action methods are far easier to come up with and implement than these cluster action ones. And then you have the rewards. Usually RuneScape moves with a rule where the more effort you put into something, the more reward you get. And cluster methods aren't exactly simple, especially not with the skill ceiling they actually have and the effort that you can put in, and as such, they need to be very rewarding. That is usually why they are very high level, and they also have a pretty decent difficulty curve when it comes to learning. Look, let me be clear about this. While they are fun, they are the most fun once you learn them. Before you do, they can be incredibly frustrating. Take Halo Sepulchre in Old School RuneScape, which I've already mentioned. Really great minigame, amazing loot, amazing XP, it turned agility from this, numb skill to something that you actually find engaging and pay attention to. But I would be lying if I said that I didn't have to just hit my head against the wall and bring out some of that sweet gamer rage for the first 15 hours until I finally started getting floor 5 completions in a consistent manner. While Sepulchre is is on the higher end of that skill ceiling and Heists are far more accessible, they are not free like, just clicking to pickpocket an NPC. This is why these methods are so rewarding, and honestly, why not everyone enjoys them. I also don't think it's healthy for skills to have a go-to method to train it where it feels like you have no options. While I enjoy these types of methods very much, it is very important to have other viable and rewarded methods alongside it. For Thieving, you already have Safe Crafting for XP and Pref Elves for loot. Those are the two most popular options outside of, now Heists. But not every single skill has that luxury, so we should really be careful with how we implement this. Content like these also demands really good rewards, which can put a lot of singular action methods in a tough spot due to lack of viable rewards. So in short, there's a lot to consider when talking about these methods. In a perfect game, yes, every skill should have not just one but several of these methods, but unfortunately it's not that easy to make them balanced to the skill or design them in a way that everyone enjoys. I first did Heists to record background footage to some RuneScape 3 related video that I released earlier this month. While I only needed 20 minutes of footage, I ended up staying there for several hours. I kept telling myself, oh come on, just one more Heist and then I'll be done, just one more Heist and then I'll be done. And that's what you want players to feel when doing content in your game, and with Heists they did deliver with that. Of course that it's not perfect, no content is. For instance, the second chamber of the Variance vault is a bit confusing for me, still I don't understand how I don't get it a lot, because of, visually speaking, you have the fireballs coming towards you and it kinda does look like you get it, but you don't get it. The fire cannons, for example, are 2x3 in the area of the fire that they hit, even though to me they actually appear to be a single tile, a single vertical tile or a single horizontal tile, depending on how you are looking at it. It's just very hard to tell where they actually affect. And it's even harder to tell due to how the ground is textured, making it hard to know where you can stand, or where you can't stand, or where you'll be hit, which is very important when movement and standing in places is how you avoid most of the dangers. The first room basically requires surge, otherwise the timing is just super tight for you to run around. All of these things are fixable, and even if they weren't, my point is that it's not perfect content. But it also doesn't need to be. It's content that, despite its flaws, it does a tremendous job of keeping you engaged to the point where several millions of Thieving XP go by and you don't even notice. Where loot is just an added extra reward to the XP you're already getting. Where completing the vaults is the main focus of you being there, not so much the loot or the XP itself. While it's not perfect, Heists as a training method delivered, and to me, I think they're the update of the year.